You wake up, reach for your phone to check the news, but something's wrong. Your banking app, it won't open. It's just spinning. Your credit cards are declined. You flip on the TV and it's chaos. Anchors, their voices trembling, are talking about how the US dollar, the euro, the yen, every national currency is now worthless. The Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, every central bank across the globe, they've been switched off, replaced by code, by a global decentralized network, your savings, your pension account, your mortgage. It's all just a number in some new system you don't understand. This isn't a Hollywood blockbuster. This is the world we're about to explore. A world where cryptocurrency became the only money on Earth. What happens to all of us on day one? Picture the morning of that first day. Billions of people are staring at their bank accounts, which have either been wiped clean or now show some strange alien number in a hypothetical global coin. Panic is too small a word for it. This isn't just a financial crisis, it's a crisis of reality itself. Because money isn't just paper or pixels. It's the social glue that holds our world together. It's a promise backed by a government, and that promise has just been broken. The first problem is the conversion. Who decides the exchange rate for converting every saving, every debt, every contract, and every salary in the world into this new currency? There's no central authority to make that call anymore. Every bank, every company, every individual tries to figure it out for themselves. It's a global negotiation that looks more like anarchy. Let's say your life savings of $100,000 gets converted into one global coin. But now, a gallon of milk costs 1/1,000th of that coin. Are you richer or poorer? You have no idea, because at the store down the street, that same gallon of milk might cost 2/1,000ths. Prices go haywire because no one understands what this new money is actually worth. Let's take a concrete example. The Smith family. They have a 30-year mortgage on a house in the suburbs, a loan on their SUV, and a mountain of student debt. Their paychecks are in US dollars. Overnight, their dollars vanish. The bank that holds their mortgage now demands payment in crypto. But at what rate? The bank, of course, tries to set a rate that's most favorable to them. The Smiths' employers are also trying to recalculate their salaries, but they're doing it to avoid going bankrupt. The Smiths are trapped. Their debt could multiply by 10, while their savings could be wiped out completely. And there are billions of families just like them. Millions who were solidly middle class yesterday wake up today in poverty. So, who wins? The people who were in on it from the start. The early Bitcoin investors, the owners of massive crypto mining farms, the developers who wrote the blockchain protocols. These people, who many saw as weirdos or scammers yesterday, are now the new global elite. Their fortunes held in crypto are now the only real capital. They are the new Rockefellers and Vanderbilts. They start buying up factories, real estate, and media empires for pennies on the dollar. It's the single largest redistribution of wealth in human history, faster than any revolution, and far more brutal because it happens without a single shot fired in the silence of digital transactions. In this new world, governments are like giants with their hands tied. Their primary tool of control, the power to print money, is gone. The Fed is obsolete. They can't issue currency to fund the military, the police, doctors, or teachers. How do you collect taxes in a currency that is inherently anonymous and borderless? Governments try to launch their own official digital dollars, but no one trusts them anymore. The faith in public institutions has been shattered. Power no longer belongs to those with armies, but to those who control the code and the network's computing power. The first few months of this world are a time of chaos and survival. Old economic ties crumble. International trade grinds to a halt because no one is willing to accept a volatile, unfamiliar cryptocurrency for shiploads of goods. Bartering makes a huge comeback. A factory trades machinery to a farming collective for food. People in cities trade their jewelry and electronics for canned goods and clean water. The world is thrown back centuries in its economic interactions. The less tech-savvy, especially the elderly, are completely locked out of the new system. They don't understand private keys, digital wallets, or the blockchain, they simply lose everything. Their life savings, held in government-backed banks, turn to digital dust. It's a humanitarian catastrophe on the scale of a world war. The conclusion from this first phase is simple and bleak. A sudden switch to a world without central banks wouldn't be a utopia of freedom, but a global disaster. It wouldn't eliminate inequality. It would create a new, even more rigid form of it. It wouldn't free people. It would plunge the vast majority into poverty and despair. The old systems, for all their flaws, provided a measure of stability and predictability. Wiping them out overnight leaves a vacuum filled with fear and the law of the jungle. But humanity has an incredible capacity for adaptation. A year or two passes. The initial shock subsides. The dust settles. The survivors begin to build a new world on the ruins of the old one. And this is where things get really interesting. What does daily life look like in this new economic operating system? How do you run a business, get a loan, or even just buy a cup of coffee when the rules of the game have completely changed? The chaos of the beginning gives way to a new, strange, and unsettling kind of normal. So the initial storm has passed. The world has survived the greatest economic shock in history. The new lines have been drawn. There's a fantastically wealthy crypto elite and everyone else just trying to find their footing under a digital sun. Let's now immerse ourselves in the daily life of this new world. What does it actually feel like? The most important thing to understand about this new economy is that it's most likely deflationary. What does that mean? Our familiar money, printed by central banks, constantly lost value. That's called inflation. It encouraged us to spend and invest because tomorrow our money would be worth a little less. Most major cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin have a limited supply hard-coded into them. You can't just print more. This means that over time, their value is designed to go up, not down. This flips the entire psychology of consumerism on its head. Why would you spend one global coin on a new iPhone today if you know that in a year that same coin could buy you 2 iPhones? People stop spending on anything but the absolute essentials. Everyone is incentivized to save, to hoard their crypto because their savings grow in value just by sitting there. Economists call this a deflationary spiral. Consumer demand plummets, so companies cut production. They lay off workers, which means people have even less money to spend, and demand falls further. The economy risks grinding to a permanent halt. The economic growth we've taken for granted becomes nearly impossible. Now, let's look at business. Imagine an entrepreneur, let's call her Sarah. She wants to open a microbrewery. In the old world, she'd go to a bank, present a business plan, and get a loan at a reasonable interest rate. In the new world, there are no banks. Where does she get the money? She has to go to global decentralized finance platforms, what we call DeFi. She'll have to convince thousands of anonymous investors from all over the world to lend her their precious, ever-appreciating coins. And those investors will demand a massive return. After all, they're risking assets that are already growing in value. Sarah will have to tokenize her future brewery, essentially signing over digital shares of it as collateral. The entire loan will be governed by a smart contract computer program. If Sarah is a single second late on a single payment, the smart contract will automatically transfer ownership of her brewery to her creditors. No extensions, no negotiations, no talking to a manager. Just cold, unforgiving code. Starting a business in this world is incredibly difficult and risky. Only the most ruthless and efficient survive. What about regular people working for a living? Salaries are also paid in crypto, and this creates a huge problem: volatility. Today, your paycheck of one global coin lets you pay your rent and buy groceries for the month. But tomorrow, the crypto market crashes 30, and suddenly your paycheck doesn't even cover the basics. Or the opposite happens. The price skyrockets, and now your employer can't afford to pay you. They offer you a pay cut or a pink slip. Long-term employment contracts become meaningless. Everyone moves to short-term gigs or even hourly wages that are constantly adjusted based on the market. Forget planning your family's budget for the year. Your planning horizon is now 1 week, maybe 1 day. But proponents of this world would say there are upsides. First, radical financial inclusion. A shepherd in the mountains with a cheap smartphone has access to the exact same financial tools as a billionaire in New York City. There are no more banks deciding who is creditworthy. There is only the network, and it is open to all. Second, it's a world without middlemen. You can send any amount of money to anyone on the planet in seconds, with minimal fees, without having to go through a chain of correspondent banks. And, of course, there's transparency. Every single transaction is recorded on a public ledger, the blockchain. This creates an unprecedented tool to fight corruption. You can't steal from the public budget if every taxpayer can see where every single coin went. You can't accept a bribe if the payment will be permanently recorded in a public database for all to see. But this transparency has a dark side. Your entire financial history becomes an open book. Anyone can see how much you earn, what you spend it on, and who you owe money to. Corporations will use this data to offer you products at a personalized, predatory price. Insurance companies will assess your risk by analyzing your purchasing habits. The government, though stripped of its money-printing power, would gain a tool of total surveillance that dictators of the past could only dream of. The privacy that crypto enthusiasts talk about would, in practice, become a luxury for the very few. The takeaway from this second block is this: life in a crypto economy is life on a razor's edge. It offers incredible freedom and efficiency, but strips away stability and security. The laws of economics operate in their purest, most brutal form, with none of the social shock absorbers we've built over centuries. It's a world of high risk and high reward with no safety net. Society becomes more fragmented, more atomized. Trust in other people is replaced by trust in code. Long-term planning gives way to short-term opportunism. We've seen how the day-to-day economy has changed. People have adapted to volatility, learned to use DeFi, and exist in a state of total transparency. But that's just the surface. Changing the nature of money isn't just a tech upgrade, it's a change to the very foundation of power. When money changes, everything changes. Geopolitics, the structure of society, and even the values that bind us together. And this is where the deepest and perhaps most frightening transformations begin. We now enter the third and final act of our story. We've witnessed the chaos of the transition and the harsh reality of the new economy. Now, let's pull back and look at the long-term consequences. How does this new world reshape the relationships between nations, the structure of power, and the very soul of our society? Let's start with geopolitics. For centuries, a nation's power was defined by its economy and its military. But undergirding all of that was control over money. This is especially true for the United States. Its global dominance rests heavily on the U.S. dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. Critical commodities like oil are priced in dollars. Most countries hold their foreign reserves in dollars. This gives America an incredible weapon, the power to impose sanctions, to cut entire nations off from the global financial system, effectively waging economic war without firing a shot. In a world run on crypto, that entire power structure collapses overnight. What are sanctions when any country can trade directly and anonymously with any other country on the blockchain? How can you freeze a nation's assets when they are held in decentralized wallets, accessible only by those who hold the private keys? The American hegemony, built on financial control, evaporates. A nation's power is now determined by new factors. Things like its control over energy production, which is needed to power the massive server farms that mine crypto and maintain the network, or the number of network nodes located within its borders, or the talent of its programmers and cryptographers. A new world map is drawn. Countries with cheap electricity or cold climates, ideal for data centers, could become the new superpowers, and entirely new players enter the world stage. Picture a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. It's essentially an internet community governed by code that collectively controls a massive treasury of cryptocurrency. A single DAO could possess more capital than the budgets of many mid-sized countries, and it can act. It can fund political movements anywhere in the world, hire private military contractors, or invest in technologies that nations can't afford. These new entities have no physical borders, are difficult to regulate, and are even harder to fight. They are the first truly supranational powers in history. Let's consider an example. Imagine a border dispute between two countries. In the old world, a superpower like the US or a body like the UN could intervene with economic pressure. In the new world, one of the countries could simply take out a massive loan from an international DAO to fund its military. As collateral, it could offer up a percentage of future mining rights on the contested territory, all locked into an unbreakable smart contract. Warfare becomes more commercialized, its outcomes decided not just on the battlefield, but in the global decentralized capital markets. Conflicts could become more frequent and more brutal because the old checks and balances are gone. Now let's zoom in from the global stage to the societal level. What happens to the social contract? For generations, we've paid taxes to the government, and in return, it provided security, built roads and hospitals, funded schools, and paid for things like Social Security and Medicare. In a crypto world, collecting taxes becomes incredibly difficult. How do you track income that flows through anonymous wallets and tumblers? Many people will simply stop paying. What does the government do? It loses its ability to fund its social programs, public health care, public education, Social Security checks. These things could become relics of the past. Society fractures even more deeply. The wealthy retreat into private, heavily guarded enclaves with their own private schools, private hospitals, and even private security forces. They live in a self-contained world. Everyone else is left to fend for themselves. The social safety net we knew is gone. The very nature of law also changes. More and more of our interactions are governed not by the legal system, but by smart contracts. Buying a house, signing an employment agreement, even a prenuptial agreement, all of it can be written into immutable code. This seems efficient. But what happens if there's a bug in the code? In the old world, you could go to court. A human judge could hear the context and make a decision based on fairness. In the world of code, there is no one to appeal to. The code is law, and it is executed automatically and mercilessly. We risk building a world devoid of flexibility, compassion, and common sense. A world run not by wisdom, but by algorithms. The values of society itself begin to shift. In a deflationary economy where saving is king, things like risk-taking, innovation, and long-term projects that don't have an immediate payoff like basic scientific research or the arts get sidelined. Society becomes more conservative, more cautious, focused on preservation rather than creation and growth. The conclusion from this final block is the most profound and disturbing. Replacing central banks with cryptocurrency isn't just a change in the financial system. It's a paradigm shift in power and society. It weakens the nation-state, creating a power vacuum filled by new, unpredictable forces. It shreds the social contract, replacing public goods with individual responsibility. It replaces human laws and judgment with rigid, unfeeling code. We might get a world that is more efficient, but it would also be far less stable, less fair, and ultimately less human. And so, our journey into a world without central banks comes to an end. We began with the chaos and panic of day one, as the old financial system collapsed, triggering the greatest transfer of wealth in history. We saw millions lose everything while a handful of crypto pioneers became the new global elite. Then, we explored the harsh realities of the new economy, a world of constant volatility where planning for the future is a fool's errand, a deflationary world that stifles growth, a world where getting a loan is a high-stakes gamble with a ruthless smart contract, and your financial life is an open book for all to see. Yes, this world offers incredible freedom from corporate middlemen, but the price is the loss of stability and predictability. Finally, we witnessed the long-term consequences, the tectonic shifts in the very architecture of civilization. Nation-states, stripped of their monetary power, wither, giving way to new global forces. Geopolitics becomes a war of code and computing power, and the social contract that held our societies together unravels, leaving every individual to face the cold, indifferent market alone. So, is cryptocurrency an absolute evil, destined to lead us into a dystopia? No, it's not that simple. The idea of decentralized money was born from a very valid and healthy distrust of our existing financial institutions, their lack of transparency, their ability to create crises and bail themselves out at the public's expense, their power to print money endlessly, devaluing our savings. The problem is that in trying to solve the problem of trust in flawed human institutions, we risk creating a new, bigger problem. We replace a system built by humans with all its faults, but also with its capacity for flexibility, adaptation, and compassion with a system built on rigid code. We try to solve for the human element by removing it entirely. But isn't that human element our ability to negotiate, to forgive debts, to compromise, to fix our own mistakes, the very thing that makes society possible in the first place? This scenario was not a prediction. It was a thought experiment taken to its extreme. The world is unlikely to change overnight. More likely, we are heading towards a long period where two systems, the old, centralized one, and the new, decentralized one, coexist. They will compete, they will interact, and hopefully they will learn from each other. But this experiment allows us to ask ourselves the most important questions. What kind of future do we want to build? What do we value more, absolute freedom and efficiency, or stability and social protection? Are we willing to trade the predictability our governments provide for the risks and opportunities of a decentralized world? And the ultimate question, who are we willing to trust? Flawed human beings or perfect, unforgiving code? There are no easy answers, but we have to start asking these questions now. This technology is evolving at lightning speed, and the world we've described today might be closer than we think. What do you think? What part of this future scares you the most, and what part excites you? Could you survive and thrive in a world like this, or do you believe central banks, for all their faults, are a necessary evil? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to know what you see as the future of money. Let's start this critical conversation together. And if you enjoyed this deep dive and it made you think, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We have many more journeys into the most incredible what-if futures ahead. Thank you for your time.